Hello, Natroners, and welcome back to another episode of VFX with Natron. So today we're going to be continuing for where we left off last episode, because we kind of missed something at the end because I kind of in the middle of the last episode got a first. There was text going on in the background, and people on YouTube didn't see this, but anyway, there was noises that are eliminated and. Anyway, did some YouTube magic. But anyway, it got me distracted and I forgot to finish, or I missed this part. So we're going to hop over and we're first going to look at the problem. Then we're going to fix the issue, and then we're going to go into doing some more VFX to talk about why I think rotoscoping is the best for eyes. Over some other tracking. We are going to actually probably try and do a little bit of tracking today, but I kind of had some issues. Anyway, there is no today's goal because I've been too busy this week. Anyway, we're hopping over into Natron, so this is where we left off last week. And as we can see, if we zoom in, this is on frame 1. One of the things you notice is that we got glowing eyes right here on the very first frame, and her eyes are closed. And you shouldn't have glowy eyes on closed eyes. Well, you might, but it's not usually the preferred thing. And that's the part that was missing, and I'm realizing this is not aligned correctly, so got that set up. So okay, so how do we fix this problem? Well, if we look at this merge here, this is the merge where it merges the eyes on top of our character. What we're going to be doing is we're going to just, for the moment, we're going to just set this to 0. And we're going to look at the roto, and we're going to, excuse me, the first roto. There we go. And what we're going to do is just go through find one of the frames, figure out where it starts to open, which looks like it starts opening probably around frame 4. Yep, that's where it starts to open. All right, I think, yep, by frame 6, they're actually open. So we actually see the beginning of it. So what we want to do is on frame 4, we want to go back here. Let's zoom in on this just a little bit, and you know what, I'm gonna just to speed things up here, we're gonna shrink this down and use the render region effect here, or viewport option here, so that we can just see the eye area of her face, so that things will go a lot faster for today, because we're going to probably be rendering this for the most part at a higher resolution today. So all right, so we're zooming in. There we go. Frame 4, what we're going to do is on the screen, or on this merge node where it says screen, the one that's set to screen, we're going to keep this at 0 on frame 4. So we're going to set a key here. This is the mix node, set it to, and then we're going to go 2 frames forward. And at 2 frames forward, we're going to set this to 1. And that means that we'll see the glow fully. What that will do is it will make it so that the eyes, there will be a little bit of a glow on the previous frame, but it will only be half as bright. So it will look like the eyes are not glowing as intensely, which will make it look like will make the blink look a lot more realistic. And we can actually, if we just let's view this at 100%, and we'll just play through this. Let's just rewind this and hit play, and we can see that should solve the one problem that we didn't go over in the last video. We can see that looks good. All right, that solves that. Just in case, and you do that anytime you have a blink, you would do that same thing. You would take it from 1 to 0 over a frame or 2, however long the blink is. If the blink is a single frame blink, then you do it in a frame. If it's a 2 frame blink, I recommend doing it over. What I would recommend doing is looking at how quickly it transitions. If it's a slow blink like this one, do it over 2 frames. If it's a fast blink, or where it's just like a normal blink, or eyes closing quickly, do it over a frame. Anyway, it's up to you, personal preference. Today that solves that. So what are we doing today? Today we're going to look at why is it that this roto method is better than some of the other methods. Well, I had said that I preferred using this over other techniques, especially in Natron. But there's a reason that may not be apparent at first. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna break this off, and we're gonna keep it around because we're actually going to be using this hopefully later on, these very rotos that we've already done. But for the time being, let's pretend we were going to do this with the tracking method. Let's try doing it because in it was mentioned in the last episode that this is loosely based off of a Film Riot VFX tutorial. And in the Film Riot one, they were talking about just generally doing various types of effects with the art and how they would go about it, and adding, replacing eyes and doing shadowing and all this other stuff. And what we did focus on was the glow. So I wanted to go over some of the other stuff that was covered in that tutorial. Or they skimmed over. Theirs was a very skim over. We're actually going to go into more of the details of how to actually do it, or at least in Natron how to do it, because they do go over enough so that anybody who's familiar enough with After Effects would have been able to do it, or anybody who anyway. They used a technique where they tracked it, and then they did the animation of the curves on top of a tracked null, or what's called the null track. And that's kind of weird, but it's hard to explain. But it doesn't work well in Natron, and I'm going to show why this doesn't work well. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a new roto in here, roto, and we're going to just connect up, for the time being, we'll just connect up the background here. And we're going to just create a new, curve. Let's zoom in on an eye. We're going to only, you know what, we'll do 2 eyes. We're on frame, we're going to go to frame 16, because that's where we did the other one. We're going to, let me just think about this. Do we want to, you know what? No, we're going to we're going to do a track first. Let's track. Let's add a tracking node here. Tab, track. All right, so where's our tracker node? Oh, it's didn't hook up where I expected it to, so we'll go over here. We'll just kind of look at that, and we're gonna click on this, and we're gonna click. What they did is they clicked on the corner of the eye. So we'll do the same thing. We'll just put a tracker there, and we're not going to even adjust our trackers. We're going to just keep it like that, and we're going to add another tracker here, and then we'll just track the two through time. We've already created our frame on the first frame. And we'll track this backwards in time. First of all, for track 1, we'll go back in time, and then then we'll go forward back to, oh, it's stopped on frame 7, which means that it's lost track of it. So what we're gonna do, if it starts like this, it means it's because she's starting to blink. So it doesn't know if it's in the right place. It's gotten to this position. All we have to do is create a new keyframe there, and then continue our track backwards. Should hopefully work again. It's got to another point. We can just, oh, it looks like it has a problem there. All right. Oh, don't tell me Natron crashed on me. Hold on 1 second. I think we have a refresh issue. Let's try this again. Put a track there. Let's continue it backwards. All right, so there it goes. So according to this, that is what it wants to do. All right, so we're just going to let it be. We're going to accept that Natron knows what it wants, and that is good. Well, then we're going to go forward. We're going to track this forward. So we're going to hit play and let it go forward. And it's going to stop at, of course, frame 72, because then we're going to go to the zoom. There we go. So we're going to go backwards a frame, and we're going to set a key here because we want to have a key on track 1 for there. It's for the last frame. Then we want to go over to frame, it was 120. And on frame 120, we want to reestablish this. So we're going to move this up here. And I'm assuming that's good enough. And we're going to just continue the track from here. So then we're going to hit track forward and continue following that track. And it looks like at this point there's a problem. So we're going to just create a key here. And then we'll just track it forward some more. I'm going to just accept that it is what it is. Natron wanted it that way. Oh, we have a problem at the refresh. All right, so we're going to move our eye. We're going to uncheck this so that we're no longer working on that. And we're going to go to our region draw options here. And we're going to just grab hold of this and pull this up a little bit right there. All right, so we can see all of the eyes. All right, there we go. All right, so that's the first track. We've got track 1, except for the close-up. We've done we've done the first part. So we're going to go back to actually what we want to use is these to go back in time. We want to get back to frame 16, and then we're going to select track 2. We're going to track backwards to frame 8. And then we're going to go here. We're just going to create a keyframe on frame 8, go backwards to frame 5, create a keyframe, and then backwards to 0, or to frame 1. All right, so now we'll go forward to frame 16. We're going to hit forward, play it forward, which gets us to frame 72. And then we're going to go backwards 1 frame. We're going to hit create a key there for that, and then we're going to go up to frame 120. Just adjust this so that it should be centered. We can look at it here. If we look at it over here, hopefully when we go back in time, it's a little bit off. Let's see. So back in time. So if we go back here. It's there, forward. I think that looks about the same. Don't worry about this over here. It's actually not update. This is not updating. So we've got it lined up. It's just below this little highlight over here. We're going to just, track it forward again till the end. Hopefully, nope, it didn't. It stopped at 149. So we'll create a key there, and then we're going to play it forward. All right, so there we go. We've created all our entire track for the zoomed out. Now we're going to, and obviously we're going to have some problems with this between frame 70 and 120. We're not going to use this tracker. We're going to have to create another tracker. So we're going to go to frame 72, and we're going to go to, we're going to create a new tracker. So we want to, we'll just do tracker already selected. So tracker 2, select that. Let's view in it. Let's put for tracker 2. We're going to need to make this a little bit bigger because it's obviously tracking the eyes here. That to be big enough so that we see it. All right, so we're going to hit the plus here. We're going to put the tracker in here on this eye. Tracker in here on this eye, and then we'll select the first one for frame 72. We're just going to hit forward, and we're going to just let it track and see. This should be very minor because it's only sitting in place for the most part, so it should get to frame 119 and then just stop. Hopefully, if everything worked right, and it did, or frame 120. And we're going to go back 1 frame. I just want to make sure that we put a keyframe. We can do the keyframe out over here or up here. Let's just use up here because that's how we started. Let's click on track 2. Let's go back to the beginning, to the first frame, and we're going to just track. So we're on frame 72, and then we're going to hit track forward for track 2. Whoops, wait a minute, that didn't work. All right, let's go back to the beginning. Let's make sure we're on frame 72. Natron apparently did not update, so we'll go to frame 72 manually. So now we're going to track it forward. There we go. and it already cached those frames, so it just cached it. It should have wound up, and we'll go back one frame, and we're going to set a keyframe for track 2 there. All right, so there we go. There's our 2 tracks. All right, one's our close-up, one is our far away. If we want to make this so that we notice it and can identify it, we're going to say we can go over to node information for track 2. This is saying this we're on tracker 2. So for tracker 2, we're going to say this is zoom in. So we zoom. That's not what we want. We want zoom in. And then on track 1, we'll go to the node information and put zoom out. All right. That way we know which one's which fairly easily. All right, so on the zoom out, what are we going to do? We want to put a roto in here. We are going to try and rotoscope on top of what they have there. Now, this is where things, other people may know why I'm doing this, but we're going to start seeing some problems here when we start trying to follow this, if that makes sense. What we're going to do, let me just think about this. What we really need to do here is we need to put the roto before the tracker, all right? The reason is that we need the roto to follow the tracker when the tracker moves. At least in theory, that should be what happens. Because if we try to roto afterwards, well, that means it's not moving with it. So we need our roto, the result of our roto, to come with it. So we're going to connect it up to the witch. So we're going to go with roto through. This is going to be our zoomed out eyes, which is what we should be looking at. If we go to frame 16, let's go make sure we're on frame 16. Not 169, 16. There we go. All right. So here we are. We're going to zoom in. We're going to put the create a new roto. We're going to just click same thing. We're going to just do the same exact thing. We're going to put a dot there like that, something like that, out here, that, and then here. All right. And for the time being, we're just going to do the one eye. I'm not going to worry about the second eye too much. Let's get this one just to see if this works. All right. So here we are. We're on 116. This is where we're starting. And we're going to say, okay, well, first of all, does this move with it when we are looking at a tracker? If it moves with it, if we tell our tracker that we want to have the tracking be the transform site be, if we tell it that we wanted to do a match move, that should automatically adjust this, right? So we go match move, and we can see that what's happened is our eye now is, or our background has moved, because the problem is that if we use the actual background, the image, or our original source as in the background, it will actually start trying to match move it to whatever the background is, and that's really not what we want. What we need is something in the background to act as behind it. And so what we really want to do is basically mimic what we've got over here. So I'm going to just take this right here, this bit here, and just copy it over to here. And we're going to just take, for right now, let me just think about this. We actually don't want the switch here. We want the switch to come after this. We want the merge to be, we want to merge here. So this is going to be our mask. What we want is our constant. We want our constant to be in the background. Is our constant. This is our color, which is our mask. We need our background to be empty, which should hopefully result in I want to make sure that this is our color, right? We've got our color. Let's make sure. All right, there's our color. We are getting our color, and we're going to track that. And we want to for this. This should be a combination. So the reason we're doing this, again, just to remind people how this works. What this constant is doing is, if we look at our roto alone, if we were to look at this as an alpha channel only, we can see that the ROD for our alpha channel is tiny for our eye. So and the problem is the tracker node needs to work off something that's going to be our output resolution of whatever our source is. So we need it to be actually the same size. So what I actually would recommend is taking our constant and plugging it into whatever your source is. That way you guarantee that that constant is going to default to whatever its input is going to be the output of that constant. All right. So in our case, it's 1080p, but that means that our constant now is 1080p. Now, when we merge it over, or merge it over with the other one, what it's doing is it's expanding the ROD, but keeping just keeping the alpha. So if we, keeping the alpha, and because it's colored right, we are coloring it. So it keeps the alpha, but it also gives us, it is setting it so that the constant is the color. Anyway, the only thing we do not want it to ever do is if the roto happened to move outside of it, we want this to crop to our ROD. So in this case, we didn't do this in the last one, but for the extensive, what it would probably, or not the extensive, excuse me, for the merge node, what we would want to say is that the bounding box probably want it to be A. We don't want it to be A or plus B, because we just want, if this were to accidentally drift out of the background size, we don't want it to change it, because we're doing tracking. And tracking, we want to keep it specifically the same size as our source. All right, so that's what we're going to do. So this is going to be a little weird, a little bit different than the last time. So we're doing the merge here. All right, and then so we're not going to worry about tracker 2 at the moment. We're just going to put that off up there. So now we're going to go over here. This should, if everything worked right, we can see that the tracker is now moving that eye. Okay. And so now what we want to do is merge that over, just like we did last time, over our original source. Now look at what's going on here. This is where things got weird. All right, let's look at that. That's not lined up. Why is it not lined up? Well, because the tracker node, our source, wasn't actually lined up. It didn't line up correctly. Let's just double check this. Let's go back to frame 16 was our original source. Let's see. All right, let's say that our reference frame was the current frame. We need to first set our reference frame to the current frame. There we go. That fixes the problem. Now it should be lined up, because remember, that's where we set up our initial thing. So when we did all the tracking, it was from frame 16. All right, so let's go back to the beginning. Let's look at it. Now it looks like the eye is following. It's not following through this part, but that's because we haven't blended it. And obviously at the end, we need to do more. All right. Let me just think about this. Is that everything? That is, yes, that should be everything. So now let's go back and let's animate our roto on top of this, okay? We're already looking at it screened, but I want to show, this is why I think this becomes more of a pain in the butt. If we start working with this in a roto form, the biggest problem we have is that it gets more difficult. I don't know. I just find it more difficult to actually deal with the rotos. And sometimes Natron can be a bit finicky about this type of stuff. And let's try pulling this back. Let's see. Let's just see if this works. All right, so we're here. Frame 1, we've done this. Going to go forward. We want on frame 4, we still want that to be down where it was. Let's keep that off. Then we're going to go forward, and we can see that by frame 6, we want the eye to be partially open. All right, let's take a look. See, let's for the moment, let's let's disable that screen so we can work on this shape. Let's find out where was it open. All right, so it opens all the way right there. It looks like. I think it's right here. So we're going to just open this up, bring this down. We're basically doing the same thing we did last time. Except for this time we're doing it, obviously, with rotoscopes. So there we go. Or with, excuse me, tracking. This is the tracking version of it. I just wanted to do this because it's important for us to get it. Let's just look at this. Wait a minute. I think here, looks good here. I'm not, but when we get back to round frame 8, this looks like it needs to be here. This looks like it needs to be here. And I would argue that this needs to come in to about there. Put that right there. All right, that looks more or less the same. Let's back this up. Interesting. We can see that, okay, at frame 5, it's still closed. Let's see here, frame 6, I think we need to actually animate this. We're going to pull this over. Whoops. Uh-oh, that was a bad thing. Let's undo that. All right, something we didn't do. I accidentally grabbed the, you might see these. See these little dangly bits coming off? That's actually the feathering for each point. We don't want to deal with the feathering. I believe it's this. Yeah, we want to just turn off feathering. And I believe turn off the feathering altogether, because we're not going to be dealing with feathering at this point. So we're just going to turn it off so that we don't accidentally pull on it. So we'll pull that there. All right, so there we go. So let's take a look-see. So right there, it's off. Then here, it's on. And then it's opening. Opening. All right, so here, it looks like the eye's open. Fine, whatever. We're going to pull this back a little bit to like there. Let's go back frame. Fine, whatever. We're going to just let it work through it. We're going to go through. Good, 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 good. Looks good. Look good. We're just going to let it be. Let it just track its way through. We don't have to do much else. This is actually looking pretty good. So maybe this isn't so bad. Maybe it's not so bad. Let's go on. Let's keep going. Perhaps this is a good method. I hadn't tested this out fully. But if you want to use this method, this is how we do it. So, and there we go. Up frame 128. It's still looking pretty good. In fact, it's tracking really nicely. Almost all the way to the end. In fact, it might track it all the way to the end. Oh, nope. We got some stuff happening here. So, all right, let me explain what's going on here. The reason that it's not, the eye isn't staying with it is because the points, what happened is that in the original one, we were pulling all the points around all the time. Now the shape is physically moving with it. So as long as the shape doesn't change, the eye should hopefully just line up. But eventually, in the second half, her head starts to tilt around. So when the head starts tilting around, the eye shape changes. That's why this type of animation is different. And you can see we actually had to do more keyframes at the beginning to sort of compensate for it. But when it was moving around and it wasn't changing, we didn't have to do anything. So we got away with quite a bit in here that for this particular animation, for at least this eye, where we didn't have to actually animate anything. So here, I think we could get away with to right about here. I'm going to actually put some keys on this here. So we're just going to grab a key. All we have to do is grab a couple, one of the points, and as soon as we've grabbed a point, it creates a key. So we should be good to go there. And that just sets up a key. And what we're going to do is we're going to find where this gets to sort of the widest point, which looks to me to be still going. I think we're just going to keep following this to the end. So Yep, we're going to follow it all the way to the end. So here at the end, we can see that it doesn't line up at all. This is just totally lost track of it. So basically, and this is ultimately one of the reasons that I don't particularly like this technique is that once the track actually loses its reference point, really, or loses the points. I mean, it hasn't actually lost it. If we were to look at it, all right, it has lost it to a degree. Oh, this is track 2. Excuse me. Wait a minute. Oh, we're looking at the wrong one. There we go. Track 1. There we go. Track 1. If we look at track 1, it's still relatively the same spot as where it started, and it should be fine, but it actually isn't quite right. So we would have to, if we wanted this to line up properly, we would have to either fix our tracker node, which means we got to go back in and create keyframes on the tracker node, or we're going to have to just animate the roto like we would have animated before, which means from this point forward, if the more that track gets off, the more we have to resort to what we were doing in the first place, which means that we really haven't gained a whole lot by using a tracker node. If the tracker tracks perfectly and you get a flawless track, the tracker node can be quicker. But as we can see here, we're going to fix it. Well, all right, let's fix it. That's not that hard. Let's grab this Bezier. Why is this not letting me? That's weird. All right, it's not letting me drag around it. Let's just grab those points and pull it over. Let's pull that over. Let's just see if this just fixes it. Hopefully this, by just pulling this to those points, let's see if that fixes it. So we're pulling it back. Probably did, but oh, wait a minute. Did you see what happened there? Right here. Everything's looking good, and then all of a sudden it just pops. Why did it pop? Well, that's because it's trying to interpolate the two, and it's getting to a point where it's just so far off between the two that it doesn't line up anymore. So we got to pull it back, and we got to readjust it over here. And this is actually a flaw with using tracker nodes, is that we start running into this, what I call popping issues. And you might have, if anybody had actually done a lightsaber track, you would have, I was actually planning to do this with the lightsaber, was to talk about this, which is that there comes a point where on tracker nodes at certain points, if the rotation turns past a certain point, it does what's called it flips 180 degrees. It's really not a good thing, and there are ways around it, but you have to manually basically do an extra frames, and so here we go. Now look at what's happened. We've gotten to the point where now our track is off again. So what do we do here? We got to go back. So frame 147. So we go back to here and we say at frame 146, well, we got to pull those back to where they were. All right, let's pull that back, pull this down, pull this down. And you say to yourself, well, that was weird. That was just weird. And we can see that it's actually doesn't line up flawlessly between our two frames, but that's okay. We could probably fix that just a little bit, but you know, it's not perfect, but you know, is it good enough? Probably good enough in here. You know what? I might just pull that there and pull that up there and this up there. All right. Anyway, so there we go. So now you say to yourself, perfect. It's a perfect track. It looks great, right? Does it? Does it really? Let's re-enable this. And now one of the nice things about using trackers is that trackers have motion blur, unlike using the roto node, using the roto node, we would have to use a roto or use a time blur. We talked about that in the past. We'd want to use time blur or a frame blend, one or the other. But with the roto node, we have built-in motion blur. So we're under the transform options. I think it's under transforms. Oh wait, we're looking at roto, not the tracker. Under the tracker, we have transform. We have motion blur. So if we take the motion blur and let's just set the motion blur on. Let's assume that we want to do motion blur. Why not? Why wouldn't we want to do motion blur? Well, let's start looking at what happens at that weird spot where we had to do those two keyframes one right after the other. That actually looks... Why does it look like we didn't do... Well, anyway, let's... It may not show because it may have been... I don't know if you can actually see what's going on there. No, it's not going to show on this one. We lucked out. So, if you're doing something that actually has motion blur, and like a lightsaber or something really fast, sorry, paused because somebody had typed something and I'm making sure everything's good. So we're good. But I'm being told that the audio and everything is good. So right. So if we were doing a lightsaber, or something along those lines, where you have things moving, the lightsaber's moving back and forth very, very quickly. The big problem that you run into is when you get very streaky motion blur. And when you start using the tracker node and you get to those points, if you happen to do the type of hiccup we just hit with the tracker node, and you have a large motion blur, what will happen is you'll actually see the motion blur for the tracker go in the opposite direction, basically 360 degrees, as opposed to going the proper direction. And that's a problem. And that's one of the things, it's one of the reasons that I really don't like using the tracker nodes for this type of stuff. Yes, if you can get it to work, you can do it. And I was hoping this was going to show it off. But I mean, it's something to be aware of. And I was hoping, again, to show that with back when I did the lightsaber thing. Probably going to do another lightsaber tutorial in the future of real lightsabers, as opposed to the bit I was doing that didn't work out so well due to other reasons. Anyway, back to this. I wanted to just bring that up so that we could see. So that is basically the thing, the way we go about it. To do the second one, what we would do is we need to basically go to frame 72. Let's just do it. Let's finish this up. We're here. We want to go to frame... That's weird. Huh. I didn't realize I zoomed in on that, on the track. So we're going to go to frame 72 right here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create another roto. So let's hit tab. Hopefully, nope, no, we need to do a roto. Roto. There we go. And we're not going to do both eyes. I'm not going to bother doing the other eye for it. I just want to, for the time being, show how one eye would work. You know the principles. The principles for animating the roto afterwards is basically the same as what we did before, with just understanding the knowledge that if there is a hiccup, we have to fix the hiccup after, or we may have to fix hiccups in the like I was showing. There's going to probably be hiccups with trackers. Anyway, so in this situation, the big thing here is, all right, first let's create our points. So here, let's go there. Let's pull this down. Let's go there, and then up to there. All right, so there we go. We've got these. Let's just shape this, because this is really ugly at the moment. Let's pull that down. I think it's too far up. This is just a little too big. That's looking a bit better. All right, so there we go. So there's our eye for this one. We've created it on frame 72. The tracker, this tracker, the start frame is frame 72. So what we want to do is we need to basically duplicate this merge node. We can just duplicate it here. We want to take a mask. We're going to put that into the roto, like so. We're going to take put it into the constant, just exact same, then take the result and put that into the source of our tracker 2. All right. And tracker 2, basically all we're going to do for right now is we're going to go to tracker 2 and put that on here. And we're going to just take our zoom here, and we're going to, or our tracker 2, we're going to go over to the transformed here, and we're going to set our reference frame to the current frame. So we're going to set it to frame 72, and then we're going to do match move. All right. And once we've done our match move, we should wind up with, if everything worked well, we should wind up with this following pretty darn good for the entire time. So there we go. So frame 72, it worked fine. We've got exactly that one, in my opinion, we didn't have to touch at all because it's simple. So in this case, that we run into the same thing where we need to use a switch to switch between the two, but we need to take switch 0 connected to track 1, which is our small or zoomed out. Track 1 goes to zoom in. And then what we need to do is after our switch, we want to, because now the glow is happening, it has to happen afterwards. So what we want to do, I'm just going to copy our glow and put it in over here. And we're going to just, you know what, let's copy our track over here and put this, oh wait, that was a copy, excuse me. So there we go. So our glow is coming after our switch, like so. And it's basically the same thing. So this is the basic gist of it. Let's take a look and see if this worked. I'm going to just hide the trackers. Let's fit this. Let's maximize this to, there we go. All right. Let's set this to 100% so that we're looking at it. Well, again, this is only one eye. So we're going to just look at this as one eye. And hopefully this should look pretty darn close to the same result for one eye. And we, you know, this is, let's right click that, fit that in. There we go. And this is going to take a little while. You know what? I'm going to actually drop our resolution here because this is taking too long. Let's drop this down to 4. And we've got a refresh issue here. So what I'm going to do is turn that off because we want to see this. We'll just keep it like that. We're going to, for the time being, just disconnect B and connect it up there. That should hopefully refresh. Refresh. Okay. Let's cache. All right, let's cache, clear the cache. We're going to clear all our caches because this should just draw. But it's not. Ah, Natron, sometimes you just make me frustrated. We'll just play through it normal. Let it go. See if, can we set this, if we set this to 2, does it work? Nope, it's a, well, I don't know why it's doing that. That's no good. All right, we're going to go turn this off, go back. Well, you get the gist. You get the gist. You can see that it, hopefully you can see that it works. And even though we're doing render region, maybe I can scrub through it. It's not building a cache today, which means my hard drive is probably pretty loaded. But we get to, you can see it works. We are getting the, we are getting the, what the heck? Hold on 1 second here. That is not right. Why is that not? There we go. All right. So we can see it. You know what? We'll do the 4 anyway, and just do that, and then rewind it and hit play. This should go really quick, and we'll get to see it. We won't see the face behind it, but we'll get to see the eye moving. and hopefully that'll give us enough of an idea of it that it's actually working, even though we're only looking at the output, which is weird. Anyway, and I don't want to, well, can't see how long we've been doing this at this point. One moment, need to, there we go. We've been going 45 minutes. All right. So, so again, yes, we could do it, but you can see we're doing more. This involves using more nodes. We end up having to do rotoing on top of it because it's not perfect. And it breaks when it does at certain points. The roto node will do 180-degree flips, which will cause some issues. And we got a redraw glitch there that I don't know if that was what that was due to. Let's see if we can track down where that glitch was. When it was zoomed in, there was a point. Guess it wasn't. Didn't matter. Whoops. All right. Anyway, so we saw it. So that's basically the gist of that. That doesn't solve the next problem. So when would we want to use tracker nodes and use this tracker technique for doing eyes? Well, the fact is that rotos are great if the only thing you're doing is tracking the shape. If you're trying to do something more complex, then you want to, rotoscoping it all the way through, hand doing it all the way through. If you're only doing it one time or one little bit, then doing the rotoscope of the one thing is fine. But if we start getting into more complex stuff, then it may benefit us to do at least part of it using the tracker nodes. But doing it in a simpler way. What do I mean? Well, let's pretend, for example, that in our situation here, we don't. Oh, that's just beautiful. And all right. Let's zoom in. Actually, let's zoom in on this. So, going to get to 200%. So in our situation here, let's go back to frame 16. I'm trying to think of something that we may want to do. Let's say your client or somebody has given you this footage, and they realize that, oh, we didn't actually want to have her eyes, ghosty pale the whole way through. The director didn't understand it. And we want to, give her colored eyes. Now, this is exactly where you might... oh, and by the way, if we wanted to do void eyes are where you just do black, basically, holes. The only difference between glowy eyes and void eyes, basically, is instead of using a glow, we would use the... here, let's just do void eyes for a second. Instead of screening this, we would set this to overlay. We'd set it to over, and we would set our constant to black, basically. So if I set this to black, there we go. There's void eyes or something along those lines. Now, mind you, we haven't. This is just gives us like a basic black shape. That's completely empty. It doesn't look like there's actually anything there. This is one of the points where, actually, this is going to be a good one. We'll use this. So here's a problem where we could do the void eyes this way, but we run into a problem where it's, well, first of all, we're if we did the void eyes like this, the problem we run into is, first of all, it's very, very hard now. And we can fix that a little bit by just taking our stroke and just softening up the shape of this. If we take the shape and we just tell it that instead of that we wanted to have a natural feathering on it instead, so we can do like a feather fall off of like 2 and we'll just change this and bring this out a little bit. If we were to, let's just turn off our overlays for the moment. Okay. Let's try and redraw that. Okay. This is not drawing correctly. Oh, Natron. I'm going to chalk this up to a live stream error here. Let's try and put that over. All right. Let's cache. Clear all caches. Now Natron is drawing this at a lower resolution, which I'm not sure why. I'm getting... This makes me nervous. This is usually when Natron, for me, starts to give me lip. All right, we're going to just do a new project version here because I have a feeling this may crash on us very shortly. And I can't tell you exactly why, but Natron's not responding, as you can see. All right, no. I said new project version. Oh, that's weird. All right, whatever. It did do a new project version. It just did it in a weird way. All right, so anyway, I'll fix that later. So here's our void eyes. I'm very frustrated because I want to see this at full resolution and it's not drawing correctly. I don't think. Or is it? Oh, maybe it is. Maybe it is drawing correctly and sometimes, whatever. All right. So here it is. This is, we're looking at it. All right. Bezier 2. Let's reset this to its default. Yeah, we want to bring the feather up. Ugh. What is going on? Getting a lot of lag. There we go. All right, we can see. There we go. Feather. We're bringing the feather up. Feather fall off. Let's see. This, for some reason, it's not falling off the way I had expected. Why are we... Oh, because the constant. Oh, let me just think about this. Let's... In the case of void eyes, we may want to just put that to 0. Oh. No, we want this to be A. All right. What just happened here? Something just broke big time on us. 1. There we go. For some reason, all right. Well, whatever. All right. So here, let's look at the alpha. All right. So there's our alpha. We're not getting a nice clean roto here. Let's look at that and just try and get our feather. Let's try pulling this. Reset to default. All right, so the feather fall off, the key thing was the feather fall off. We don't want to adjust that too much. There's what our problem was. All right, so we want to bring it down. We only want the feather. So we want to just soften this a smidge here so that instead of being 1.5, we want to make it like 2 or maybe a little more. And we may even, let's try reducing. So feather fall off. Uh-oh. No, keep your feather fall off at 1. All right, and then we'll look at it. Let's look at it. Oh, yes, I'm going to go A. It should, if everything was set correctly. Why are we not getting a stroke? That should have. Let's look at this. A. Right. There's our alpha channel, which comes here. It is not doing what we want. All right. Well, I'm not going to worry about this too much. We could always do we could always do this just straight up with the actual rotos. What in the world is going on here? Something is really, really strange. Let's just set this to use everything and then do our color actually here in the roto node. And then let the roto dictate the alpha. But it's dictating it in a weird way, or at least it looks weird to me. Let's just see if it's... Well, all right. This is being weird. I don't recommend for this particular situation. I mean, this is giving us something more of a void now. Let's see. Maybe what we should do is turn those off and then go back over to this, put that over the A, and okay, so we're back at the same point. So it's just that I don't usually use, so people are aware, usually if I do stuff like this, instead of feathering, I would usually blur it or something like that. I was just trying to do it in here, save us some time, but I did not calculate this out. Anyway, so we got, all right, so we're getting something that's more void-like by just turning it up way more than I had originally expected. So if we set this up to like 14 for here, we're winding up with something that looks more whole-like, because it's soft around the edge. And it makes it look like it just drops into nothingness and so forth. That would be a void. But the other option is having something that's just like a solid pupil. And now we can't really do solid pupil with this particular with this as it currently stands. What we would have to do is to do a solid pupil, we would have to do it over here, using the tracking. And the reason is that all the coloring and so forth, we have to layer it, and it doesn't make sense if you're going to be animating a track or animating an eye, something to follow an eye, that you would just animate all the rotos together or as separate entities and separate pieces. That's why the last episode was called The Simple Glow, showing how to do a quick simple glow with, if you're doing something simple like a glow, even the void eye is not so bad, but if you're doing a pupil eye or something along those lines, then we have to do something more complex. And that's when we have to rely on doing it this way, even though it is a limitation, or it's more limited in some ways. So let's go over, let's actually set it up. Let's get this going. Let's set this to black instead. So it's the same. There we go. Got it working here. And you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm just trying to think of the best way of doing this. I'm going to try something here. I'm going to do a blur here just to see if my thought on this is actually better. If we just do blur this out. Yeah, see, blurring it, to me, it's just quicker. This is how I usually would do it, and it wound up in 2 seconds. By just setting it to a size of 2, we wind up with something that looks a lot more like what we want, where we wind up with a blur around the edge, and it just worked. All right, so I recommend that as opposed to using. I recommend using a blur to do it. So okay, so here's our void space, or this might be our eyes. We have a problem here because we're dealing with black, that our roto isn't quite big enough, so we might actually have to go back to frame 16. That's weird. Oh, we've turned off the overlays, that's why. We may have to just increase the size of this a little bit more so it covers This is the only thing that you would have to do with if you're doing something that's solid black. We're dealing with something black on top of something that's white. When you're dealing with something that's solid white, and you're putting something solid black behind it, you would have to make sure that it goes all the way and you cover out all the stuff. So your rotos have to be more precise. So that's the only thing that we have to worry about. But anyway, and yeah, hopefully we can, if we were to go frame by frame through this, yeah, we're seeing some problems here. We would have to pull this up here. You know, let's zoom in. We can see that this is not as perfect. Pull that up. I would go here, just pull this out a smidge. There we go. That fixes that edge. Let's go back to the previous keyframe. I'm just doing this to show you what you'd have to do in this situation. But you can see that the blur lies on top of or after this. So it's a layered effect. This is a layered effect. And what we're doing is everything we're doing is happening afterwards. Now, there is one catch-22 in this, which is one of so why would we want to do it this way? Well, there is one area where this is more beneficial, which is when you're doing this, we don't have any visual cues that this is highlight, that we're looking at an eye. This is just looking like a void. It isn't actually looking like a solid pupil. Well, why is it not looking like a solid pupil? Well, part of the reason is that there's no highlight on it. Let's see if we can find there. See this highlight right here? We want that highlight. So what we need to do is right here, we want that highlight to exist. So we have to basically recreate that highlight somehow for the rest of to exist on top of our void. So what we would want to do, the easiest way to do this is we would get it. I'm only going to, again, just do this on one eye because I don't want to focus on that. We saw basically the general things of how to animate it and so forth in the previous one. And I'm just checking the time. We're at 1 hour and 2. We're going to do this. This is going to probably be the last thing. So radial, R-A-D. If we're going to do a radial, and why am I doing a radial? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up on top of what we already have. Let me think. Yeah, we actually want to do it on top of our read node. Okay, so why am I putting the radial on there? I'm going to zoom out and look at this radial, and I'm going to just shrink this radial in. Okay. Obviously, the radial's not going to work like that. So what we're going to do is instead, we're going to just put oh, that wasn't the radial. I was like, that's the weirdest thing. I see what I did. All right, I accidentally shrank the wrong thing. So here we go. This is the face. Right. Here's our radial. So this is our radial. We're going to grab the edge. We're going to just pull this in like so. Yes, and we want to obviously look at, not the glow, we want to look at our radial. There it is. So looking at our radial. So what I'm doing is I'm shrinking the radial down. Basically, I'm going to line the center of the radial up with the highlight. And for the time being, I'm going to just take color 1 of it, and I'm going to set it to 0. I'm going to set the center of this right on top of that highlight, right about there. And then I'm going to just shrink. All right, well, no, I'm not. I'm going to actually shrink this down. I'm going to set it to let's set it to 3 pixels by 3 pixels for its physical size. Then we'll zoom in on it, and we're going to pull this over here and put it right on top, and then we're going to just set the color 1 back to 1. So there we go. So we can see the highlight right there. All right, so there's our highlight. It's basically in the exact same spot. So why do we have it there? Well, simple. We're going to take this off. We're going to put the constant. We're going to feed the constant into the back of this, because remember, we want to actually, you know what? We don't even need to do the constant behind it. What we can do is just take our constant. Let's look at our eye void here. This is, I'm trying to think of the best way of viewing this. All right, we're going to go here. Here's our eye void. This merge node here is where the eye effect. Let's, for the moment, just change this so that instead of blue or black, excuse me, we're going to go back to that blue color, all right, that we had, except for now, instead of being a glow, it's a, it's just blue. It's blue, a soft blue. So here's the radio. All right, here's that radio we had. We're gonna, whoops, I disconnected the tracker. I want to grab A2, and I'm gonna put A2 into the radio, and watch, it's gonna put the highlight right on top of it. So we can do our layering right in here. And all I have to do to basically mix this, to figure it out, I don't have to do much more. You might think with some other programs, you would have to do your layer mixing to a degree with merge nodes or with layers. Well, we can actually control it because this is the radial here. We can actually control the mix right here. So we can drop this down a bit so that we can pick out exactly how bright we want it to be so it's not super duper intense. And then we can go back to our constant, which set up the color for the background, and we can change this back to 0. So it's back to black. There we go. And now we wind up with the highlight on top of it, and it adds a little bit more realism to it. It's just we want to turn off our overlay so we can evaluate it and what its final look will look like. And so we'll just drop this down. We don't want it to be too bright. We can look at the other eyes, and we can see that's about how bright it is. So this is about 1% yeah, 10%, excuse me. It's about where we want it. And that gives us something that now, instead of looking like it's a void eye, we have something that looks like it's solid pupil. And that just gives us the thing. So does that work? Well, let's see. Let's, for the moment, you know what we're going to do? We're going to just, set it so that it goes to frame, I'm going to end this at frame 72, or actually frame 71, and we're going to, for the time being, let's turn on the overlays. Let's shrink this down because hopefully we can watch just this part. So we're gonna turn off our overlays for the moment, set this to 100%. Let's actually turn it back on for a minute. I just want to watch that part of it. So we're going to go back to the beginning. And we can see, all right, so here's a problem. We do have a problem where this is going to be, if we hide our overlays right now, we can see that that highlight is on top of it. It's still there. It's still showing up. So what we're going to have to actually do here is set a keyframe. Let's set a keyframe and just set this to 0. So now it should not show up. That's weird. It shouldn't be there, but... Oh, it won't show up at all. Because, we don't even have to. Never mind. Right. Let's remove the key. We don't need the key. Because this is all happening. We've rotoed it. The roto is dictating the shape. We have it all dictated by the roto. The roto is just defining what out of these layers, it's the mask. So it shows what out of these layers. So we don't even have to worry about it. I was thinking we were going to roto it out. Saves us a lot of trouble. All right, so let's hit play. Let's look at this. We're going to look at this at 200%. 200%. There we go. We're going to play through this. All right, so there we go. And it isn't perfect. All right, it isn't perfect. And the reason it isn't perfect is that we didn't adjust the roto animation throughout the entire thing. We do need to fix the roto for the roto shape for the constant so that it basically covers that blue or it covers the edge of it all the way around. Actually, let's go back and fix that. We can do that right now. Might as well. How much time? Well, 110. All right. Sure, we'll do this quick. We'll fix it. We'll try to fix it. So we're going to go take our, let's see, this is our roto. We're going to go grab our shape. All right, there we go. We want to go back. Let's go back to the beginning. So at frame 1, this is what it looks like. That's fine. Frame 4, that's fine. Frame 5, I think we want to just push this up a smidge more, so a bit less of it. Might pull that over a smidge more like that. That. And we'll go to frame. This just means our roto just has to be a bit more precise. There we go. Pull this off to the side. We're going to actually pull this over more because now we're dealing with something that represents the actual pupil of the eye. So there we go. Let's go to the next frame. This one here, we're starting to see. Now the highlight isn't going to change because the eye, the light is still from that same position, and the head can tilt, and we may want to look at the other eye for reference to see if the brow is covering it over. But for the most part, we can just assume that that highlight's supposed to be there. If it isn't, we can always look at the existing eye, and we could, and all we'd have to do is just basically animate the value of it. This value right here, we could just turn it down to 0 temporarily, or animate its brightness using this. All right, but let's go back. We're going to focus on basically assuming that the brightness stays consistent there. So let's do this. I think we may. This is looking a little too light right down there, so I'm going to just pull that down a little. This maybe down a smidge right there. There we go. Let's go to next frame. That looks pretty good. I think right on the edge there. I want it just a smidge wider, just to make sure. Go there. A little bit there. Looks good. Next frame. Aha, here's one where we have problems. So this needs to go up to about there. This definitely needs to come over more. This needs to come down. And we just, we just adjust this as like we are right now. There we go. We want this to be a big hole in the eye cavity. There we go. That's looking, I think that's looking pretty good. Let's show hard overlays. All right, let's look at what that looks like. Let's set to 200%. So we can view it, and let's maybe we have something that looks more like a void eye now, and we're seeing some problems in there. All right, so those problems are caused by the little bits that we're seeing are probably caused by the fact that the track is not a perfect track in here. I said we didn't need to track things. Well, it turns out we do. So what we need to do is figure out where. Oh yes, we're going to have to turn on the overlays, show hard overlays. So in here, what I would say is we want to go to frame 71, first of all. And we have this, we have our roto, we have our key here. What I recommend doing is here, we want to set up a key. So I would recommend just grabbing and creating a key. Let's move this around. That's weird. Why are we not seeing keys? Should be showing a key. All right, well, there it is. All right, so anyway, so then we're going to go about halfway between, and we're going to look at it about the halfway mark. And we're going to just have to fix it. So this is very similar to what we did last time, but with a bit more. We're going to just pull that around. Let's look at it a bit more. Let's see. Let's go to about halfway between. Now that's weird. We're seeing problems here. This is not updating our keys. Where is that key? Wait a minute, that's not right. It definitely should be animating, but Natron is not. Natron's giving us some weird errors here, so it's not refreshing the curve information, which is odd. It's not locked. These are not locked, so we should be able to animate it. Well, let's look at it. Let's just scrub through right there. That frame right there definitely needs a bit more. There. Keep it black. The key thing is the big thing is with this type of thing is not letting it. Let's see if that actually took. It did take. It's just not showing us our actual keys for some reason. That just is a refresh bug. I'm assuming if any of the programmers are watching this, I would recommend. All right, we're getting a little bit of an edge glow here. So I think I want to, right there seems to be about the maximum. Pull that out just a smidge. Oops, nope. Pull that back. There we go. Oop. Right there, we get some glowage. I think we want to pull this down just a smidge. Over. Down. There we go. So. All right, there we go. So I'm hoping I'd show overlays 200%. Let's watch through this one more time. There is something weird happening. Hold on. There's something weird happening when it's opening right there. The problem is that the void that we've created, the black we're creating for the eye is a pure black, and it really shouldn't be a pure black in this case. So what we probably want to do is make it slightly about a little lighter than closer to what the eye color is. So we're going to just go in here and bring it up in value just a smidge. We want it to be about as dark as whatever the darkest shades we're seeing in this eye, in the shadow areas, is. So it's about 22 is about where we really want it to be. So let's go back and now let's watch this. This ought to help it look a lot more realistic. It just, remember, your blacks should never be blacker. Your blacks in your actual art for your eye should never be darker than the actual blacks of your blackest parts of the scene. Black is black, for the most part. So we're seeing it. There's still some weirdness right in here. For example, there's a bit of a glitch. So let's look at the overlays. I'm just doing this to make sure that we get, might as well make this as pretty as possible so that it looks good, right? Might as well. So let's look. There we go. Void. We looking voidy. This is looking voidy-toidy. I think right here we want that to be just a smidge more. There we go. All right, so there we go. Let's try that again. 200. Show palette overlays. Rewind. Play. Hopefully this is the last time. Oh, that's good enough for our needs. It's not the best in the world. We could work on this a little bit more and really fine-tune it until we get something. But for the most part, we get something that looks more like it's a void eye. Or an actual, excuse me, not a void eye. A pupil eye. Where there's an emptiness. Now we could also animate this and we could do other things. We could, there's dozens of ways. The other thing we could do, that was talked about in it, is we could do fall off on the edge, but by blending this into the surroundings with a little bit of redness on the edge. That might help it a bit. Well, we can do, how would we go about doing that? Well, we would just do another overlay. In fact, we could take a radio. We could just copy this radio. Might put it in, let's see. We could do, what I would do in that case is I would probably set the constant, this constant, to be the, instead of being the void, I would set this to be, let's actually, let's hit cancel. Let's pick, watch this. We'll pick the edge of this white, or this like reddish pink white over here. I'm going to hold down Control key and click over here, which is selects it. So we wind up with this like reddish white, which winds up with that, right? And we're going to just, for the time being, I think we may take our blur. You know what? This might be one time where I'm just thinking about how do I want to do this. We may want to increase a blur a bit more. I don't know. Probably we run into some problems. Anyway, let's see about let's talk about this. So we have we're going to take A2, which was going to the highlight. We're going to put it into this radial here, which where for the moment we're going to just turn off that constant by hitting D to deselect it, and we're going to take this radial here. Do we show hide overlays? We're going to make this basically the size of the eye, like so. And we're going to bring this one up to 100%. And we're going to say that instead of being this, we're going to set it to be, we're going to set this to black. So it's like that. And as we can see that this has made it, the softness is too much. So we're going to pull the softness back a little bit. Actually, maybe not. Maybe what we really want to do is make this bigger. All right. So we'll make it bigger. Like so. Oh, that really does need to, all right, maybe we don't want, we may want to make it like 0.9. Grab that center point. And I think that's the center point. We're dealing with, get that center point like right there. Pull this off to the side. Go. So it's softer. So we wind up with something more like a void, like, or an eye like that. And of course, we want to make it. We don't want it this color. We want it to be our gray or a black. So of course, we want to. Oops, no, wait a minute, not that one. We want this one. So we want to pick that, and we want to make that the black, one of our blacks that is closer to our real to black in our scene. Scene black looks to be about like there. There we go. So that's more scene black. So then when we enable this, we wind up with the eye. Hopefully that creates a little more of a black, and then we put on top of it on layer 3, we could put this for a highlight, and then maybe that will work better. Let's take a look at what our radial looks like. Because really the void is actually the pupil or the cornea of the eye. And so what we want to do, let's, I want to grab this softness. Let's drop that softness a little bit more. Pull that in a bit. And a bit. You want to make it look like it's part of the actually part of the retina in pupil. So there we go. So we wind up with something like that, and hopefully this might look a little bit better. So let's just try that. 200. Play. And it looks a little bit better. We still have some issues with the roto on the edge. I think we'd want to clean that up a bit, soften it out, adjust the keyframes a bit. But we're getting the general gist of the eye. It needs some tweaking around the edges. It's not that big a deal, but you get the idea. We've got a void eye, or a pupil eye going on there that looks like she's got a solid black eye. So you could create this thing that, you know, she has black eyes, she has glowy eyes, she has whatever type of eyes. but it involves, depending on what you want to do, you either want to use rotos. Rotos are the simpler way if you're doing something simple like glow. And if you want to get into more complex things, then what you want to do is you want to use the tracking and you want to then roto on top, but you're going to run into some of those issues where you have to work around it. And for the most part, unless you're actually using motion blur, by the way, you know, I just realized we've been doing motion blur this whole time. We can turn off the motion blur and hopefully that might even make it render faster than it was. There we go. That was probably why it was rendering so slow. So yeah, it's getting some shimmy jimmies all that. And that's because there's probably too many side-by-side keys on this Bezier. We probably animated it too close to one another, but, you know, is what it is. Anyhow, this episode's long enough. It's gone over it. So the goal today was, of course, to talk about how to do the fading of the eye that we saw in the beginning, which we can actually look at again. We did that right here. Oh yes, we're not looking at the right thing. Let's put our constant back to that blue. And right, this wasn't merge over. We want to have that set to screen. So if this were screen, you know what? Let's copy this. Put B there, A there. That way we can look at them as two different things. So this was our original, what we had before. And, oh yes, and except for that we've obviously upped the roto, the blurs. Let's reset this to default. And same with the other one. This shape. Oh, a minute. Oh, it was this one. We did it here. There we go. Reset to default. There we go. So this is what our original one was. What we did here on this one is we basically added this fade in. That was the first goal of today. And then our second goal of today was to do a void-based... Uh-oh. Why is this not showing our void? Ah. That's odd. We had that void going on there. It was going on there. That's looking good. There. Why is that not showing? Huh. I don't know what's going on here. We have it. It's right there. Hey, there's our thing. It's looking good. Let's go over here. You know what? Let's just take that on top of it. No. I don't know why that's not showing up. Our tracker it's tracking. We can see it right here. Oh, I know why it's not working. Because this is set to set to screen. There we go. Set it to over. There we go. Now we go back. There we go. So there we go. And we also, our second goal was to sort of do void eyes. We can, again, just tweaking the animation. The problem was I didn't animate this from the beginning for void eyes. I sort of animated it for doing the glow. I would have, if I had animated this from the beginning, that the roto for it, it would have probably come out a lot better because we would have dealt with the R shape at the beginning and it would have tracked better. Anyway, so there we go. We can see it. It looks good. It matches pretty well. It looks like it belongs in the scene for the most part. It even gives it sort of gives it a creepiness to the bottom of it down there. But anyway, right. Thanks for watching. Keep on Natroning.